Thank you so much, guys. Namaste, everyone. We're going to start the next session, and a very warm welcome to session 8, titled Australia Means Business, Sectors Support and Success Stories for Global Entrepreneurs. This session highlights Australia's dynamic economic landscape and the opportunities available for global entrepreneurs through collaborative ventures, strategic support, and inspiring success stories. Now I invite the chairperson of this session, Srimati Natasha Jha Bhaskar, Executive Director, Newland Global Group, along with fellow panel members, Mr. Brian Hayes, KC, Mr. Chris Wood, and Dr. Christian Berzer. Can I please ask everyone to settle, and people who are standing outside the conference room, can we kindly ask them to bring them in, please? We are going to start the session.
It's okay.
While everyone is settling in, I'll try to introduce the chairman or the chairperson of this session, Srimati Natasha Jha Bhaskar. Srimati Bhaskar is the executive director of Newland Global Group, a Sydney-based advisory firm focused on India-Australia relations. She brings over 12 years of experience working in the Indian Parliament and has represented India at international forums, including SAARC and BRICS. Her deep expertise in governance, policy, and cross-border collaboration makes her an ideal chair for this session. Please welcome the chair, Srimati Natasha Jha Bhaskar, Executive Director, Newland Global Group.
Thank you very much. Namaste, Sadar Pranam. Good morning, everyone. It's a privilege to open this session with some of the most entrepreneurial, globally minded leaders in the room. We are talking about Australia as a launchpad for your global ambition. Over the past few years, I've had the privilege of working with businesses across the Australia-Bharat corridor, particularly at the intersection of policy and business, helping decode not just how companies succeed across borders, but why they choose to. And before that, I spent over a decade at the Bharat Parliament, Lok Sabha, navigating the complexity of policy making in one of the world's most dynamic democracies. And if there's one thing that journey has taught me, it is cross-border success is not just about capital or compliance. It is about timing, trust, and shared purpose. And right now, Bharat is more aligned with the world and with Australia than ever before. So let me start with a provocation, and you're going to witness quite a few provocations asking you to bring your sharp insights as we ask for a few more questions post the presentations. What do the Japanese, Americans, Koreans, and Germans know about Australia that Bharatiya businesses are only now beginning to see? While we are still weighing options and debating where to go next, they have made Australia a cornerstone of their global strategy. Why? Because Australia is not just a G20 economy with clean governance, stable institutions, and a AAA credit rating. It's a high-trust test bed for business models, a geopolitical safe zone, and a springboard into larger Western markets. But here's the real shift. Bharatiya businesses are no longer sitting on the sidelines. They are entering smartly, selectively. They are not just competing, but they are solving for Australia's future. Well, don't take my word for it, so I'm going to give you some evidence, quite a few. So Bharat's Suzlon Energy entered the market in 2004 with just 2 employees and a clear vision to tap into one of the world's most promising wind energy frontiers. Today, it stands as the top 3 wind energy player in Australia, having delivered over 30% market share during its peak and employed 300 plus people by tailoring its full EPC model to local needs, from site selection to 20-year maintenance. Suzlon has enabled clients like AGL and Tilt Renewables in Australia to focus on core operations while securing reliable clean power. Across 9 wind farms, it has generated over 800 jobs, built regional capability, and supported Australia's renewable ambitions. NMDC Limited, Bharat's largest iron ore producer and a listed Navratna PSU under the Ministry of Steel. It made a strategic and measured entry into Australia in 2011 by acquiring a 50% stake in ASX-listed Legacy Iron Ore in Perth for a $19 million potential. Now, this low-risk, high-potential investment marked NMDC's first overseas acquisition, which was designed to be swift, scalable, and scrutiny-free. Over time, NMDC has increased its stakes to 90%, enabling Legacy to expand into gold, lithium, and base metals exploration across Western Australia. For NMDC, Australia's stable, resource-rich, and investor-friendly environment offered the ideal gateway for global growth. And for Legacy, NMDC's capital and credibility offered and unlocked new acquisitions and accelerated development, creating a long-term win. So what's required is more than a mining play. It reflects Bharat's appetite to co-invest in Australia's critical minerals future, not just for steel, but for downstream energy applications in both countries. Then there's Polycab, a household name in Bharat, a listed powerhouse in the wires and cables sector. Polycab entered the Australian market in 2020 with a clear strategy establishing a sales subsidiary in Sydney to build local presence, deepen client access, and tap into Australia's booming renewable and infrastructure sectors. It partnered with MMEM TLE, the country's largest electrical distribution network, and it quickly positioned itself as a trusted supplier for major projects, including the 1 gigawatt McIntyre wind farm, which is one of the largest onshore wind farms globally. Another company, and I'm going to bore you with quite a few, reason being, I'm often asked this question, we do not have enough case studies of Indian companies operating in the Australian market. So I'm just going to give you a list of few, and also going to tell you to access one of the largest voluminous pieces that we have produced at Newland Global Group, 50,000 words, 26 companies, which showcases the success of Indian companies in Australia and Australian companies in India. And we're now working on the second iteration of that, which will be launched in November this year, and then also will be launched in Bharat in January next year. Another company, Adverb Technologies, founded in 2016, which is a fast-growing intra-logistics and robotics powerhouse that designs and manufactures advanced automation solutions for warehouses, distribution centers. It entered the market in 2020, and since then has known Australia's labor shortages and rising cost pressures. It was identified as a strong fit for robotics-driven efficiencies. As a company, it quickly established offices in Melbourne and Sydney, forming Adverb Australia with support from local partners and specialists. Beyond these bigger companies, and there are quite a few there, another company, I would say a smaller one comparatively, is Delectric, which is a vanadium redox flow battery technology. It's powering Australia's, again, energy transition. It's a homegrown innovator. The founder is an acclaimed chemical engineer. He's designed and manufactured modular long-duration energy storage systems with patented stack and system designs based on mature VRFB chemistry. And these products are now in Australia. It has established a 100% subsidiary in Western Australia and has partnered with local distributors. So what exactly do these companies really have in common? They did not enter the Australian market. They plugged into its ecosystem. A stable policy environment trusted by investors, a skilled multicultural workforce ranked among the most resilient globally, and most importantly, a government that wants you to succeed, from federal grants to state support to university R&D linkages. And these are evidence that Australia is no longer just a friendly market, it's becoming a vital node in the global growth strategies of Bharat's businesses. They reveal a mindset shift, and in return, Australia offers something which is very rare in today's world, all that we are witnessing in US and other economies: policy stability, strong IP protection, deep research commercialization, links, and a growing commitment to the Indo-Pacific. What we have learned on this journey as a consulting firm and advising quite a few of these companies and working in that domain, what we have learned from these Bharatiya companies, how they're getting it right in Australia, is whether through joint ventures or acquisitions, Bharatiya firms that actually partnered locally unlocked faster market access and trust. Australians do business with companies that commit. So local hiring on ground teams and long-term visibility matter. Presence is not optional, it is credibility. Play to the strengths, so cost innovation and IP trust, competitive advantage. Bharatiya firms are also co-developing with Australian universities. As I mentioned earlier on Suzlon, they are aligned with local renewable energy incentives. And then also de-risking business models. It is a conservative market, so capital will be a challenge for infra-heavy sectors. So successful Bharatiya companies, they built de-risked business models to win over banks and investors. And then supply chain resilience around skilled workforce areas of surface quality. Bharatiya firms that matched global benchmarks gained real traction. So in 2025, the smartest companies are not just following growth, they are hedging risk, embedding trust, and building in resilience. And Australia offers all three. This panel will now go deeper on why Australia is the strategic bet for global entrepreneurs, on how South Australia is quietly becoming a magnet for capital, climate, space, and defense tech, and co-innovation, and how universities can de-risk your entry and fast-track commercialization. Now, as we begin, I invite you to focus on the micro stories, the execution on the ground, the deals that close, the partnerships that last, and the companies that quietly scale. So I request you for your full indulgence, be in good numbers here. Please ask sharp questions and give us those insights. Listen closely. May I now request Brian Hayes, South Australia's former special envoy to Bharat, to share his remarks, please.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm grateful for this opportunity to speak to you. It's rare nowadays that I have the chance to speak to so many people at one time in a sort of captive audience, which I hope you are. I want to start by just highlighting what I regard as fairly obvious elements of the relationship between Australia and India. Australia's business environment, its global positioning, and its unique economic and social factors create the ideal landscape for both local and international business ventures. And this is particularly relevant in the context of this conference, namely the relationship between Australia and India. But our relationship is not built only on economic interests. It's underpinned by shared democratic values, mutual respect, and a commitment to a sustainable future. India is one of the fastest growing economic countries. We know that. We know a lot of the facts that you've heard throughout this conference. And dare I say it, we have known it for a long time. I'm going to stick my head out here and say it is only relatively recently that Australia has really begun to understand the value of India as a partner in both geopolitical and economic business and trade. It's been a long time coming, but it is now here. In recent years, both governments have taken significant steps to enhance economic cooperation, recognizing this immense potential for a stronger bilateral business relationship. And we see now these initiatives such as the Australia-India Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement, which you no doubt will have been talking about throughout this conference. And despite what's going on globally, both countries are working hard to reduce trade barriers, improve market access, and simplify regulatory frameworks. We heard the speaker before this session talking about the NSE, which has done an incredible job. And I had the benefit of hearing this for the very first time, and I'm truly impressed. Additionally, Australia has invested heavily in supporting Indian businesses in entering the Australian market, providing not just financial backing, but also a rich network of business support, mentorship, and technical expertise. The most recent example of this is one that I'm interested in, is the Australia-India co-production agreement in the film industry, which is such a welcome initiative for both countries in this industry. Australia's Export Finance Australia and India's National Investment and Infrastructure Fund are helping businesses navigate financial challenges and seize opportunities on both sides. These strategic partnerships make a powerful statement about the intent to strengthen this collaboration in the long term. But what truly brings these agreements to life are success stories. The businesses, the innovators, the entrepreneurs who are pushing boundaries, transforming industries, and creating jobs in both countries. Against that background, I'm going to just deal with a micro issue. This country is made up. The majority of the country's businesses are SMEs, and that's the same with South Australia. And what I want to do now is to just give you an insight into one small company, and we're not talking big millions and billions of dollars. We're talking about how one small initiative has borne results over a period of time. I've got the permission of the original founder of this company to tell you about this example in this conference. Some years ago, there was a small company started by Andrew Downes called Sage Automation. He started that company in his back garden. Having started the company in his back garden, he made a visit to India on holiday. He came back an Indiophile. He just loved India, so much so that he established a tandoor oven in his back garden because he just loved the country. Sage Automation was an advanced manufacturing company which moved from his back garden into premises in South Australia. And because of his interest in India, which was really born out of his visit as a tourist to the country, he came back enthusiastic about building a business in India. He asked me to see him about how to go about it. At that time, I was the national chairman of the Australian Business Council, and I was also the South Australian government's special envoy to India. And what we were trying to do is build bilateral trade and business relations between the two countries. Andrew asked me to come and see him in his office and said, look, how do I get my business into India? So we had a chat about this, and I said, I'll just mention a few things for which you must take into account right at the beginning. A business relationship or a trade relationship between South Australia and India is a long-term relationship. It does not happen overnight. You can go on any number of trade missions, but don't expect to sign deals, coming back and sign deals on that as a result of that one trade mission or that one business meeting. It's a relationship country. You have to build relations between the two of you. And so he got his accountant in to see us and said, look, we want to set up these, get some of our machines or plant and equipment into India. Can we just manage by paying interest on them rather than looking for a profit at this stage? And we'll see if we can find somewhere in India. The other thing I mentioned to him was we have a huge diaspora here, Indian diaspora here. A lot of Indian students who are doing MBAs at the University of South Australia. I suggested that he might like to look at that as a future source of employment. And he chose a young guy who was doing his MBA, Rakesh. He said, right, he interviewed him. He took him on as an intern while he was doing his MBA into Sage Automation. He was so impressed with him that when he's finished his MBA, he gave him a job at Sage Automation. He knew that Rajesh was not going to stay in South Australia because his family was in India. He was getting an education here and he wanted to build a business. And so Andrew put him through all departments of Sage Automation, right through the whole company, getting him to understand it, learn about it, and be enthusiastic about it. And when he had done that after a few years, he went to India. Andrew opened up a business in Pune. He entered into a joint venture with the university over there to train some of the students there on a bilateral basis. And to cut a long story short, that company became very, very successful in India, with Rajesh now taking an equity stake in the company and being an owner. And more recently, Sage Automation was acquired by a NASDAQ company for billions of dollars. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is a true story of a small business engaging with a large country, but on the basis of a business relationship which was long-term, based on building a trust relationship between the two countries and utilizing nationals from both countries in building that global, which is now basically a global business. So my view has always been that it's no good me telling you, well, I'm not going to tell you about the benefits of Australia. I know what those benefits are. But what I've always tried to do is to encourage Australians, and South Australians in particular, to engage with India and to ask and invite Indians to engage with Australia in both. Now it's very important from the geopolitical side of things, but I was always interested in the business and the trade side of things and the education aspect. And when we have this, but it has to be a long-term association and a long-term relationship. If we do that, and I think we are well on the way to doing it, looking ahead, the future of Australia-India business relations is bright. Our economies are complementary. Our collaboration has already opened up many doors for shared growth. However, it's necessary to foster and maintain an environment of trust, open dialogue, and innovation. And by investing in people-to-people ties, education, infrastructure, and technology, in my view, both countries will prosper even more than they do so at the moment. So as we look forward to the future, we can expect even more success stories, more startups finding markets, more business expanding across borders, and more cultural exchanges that enrich both nations. And together, we can chart a course towards prosperity, sustainability, and mutual respect. Australia and India have not only the opportunity, but also the responsibility to create a business environment that is innovative, inclusive, and impactful. And the success stories to date, and the one I told you is a very small success story, but there are plenty of others. Those success stories will continue into the future because of the situation that the two countries find themselves in. And Australia in particular is so ideally placed geographically, economically, and institutionally to relate with a country that is now going to be, I think, soon to be the third largest economic country in the world. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Brian. May I now request Chris Wood, Executive Director, Investment South Australia, to share his insights and also why South Australia offers us a competitive advantage. Over to you.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the Chairman and the Organising Committee on delivering such a wonderful event. Mountains of work have gone into delivering this event, so please accept my personal congratulations on doing a wonderful job. I hope all of you have had at some stage a chance to see Adelaide and enjoy some of the things we have to offer. But just in case you've been too busy here and networking that you haven't had quite that chance yet, I've designed this presentation to give you a summary of South Australia, our strengths, and also some opportunities for engagement. So my presentation is titled Unlocking Opportunities, How Global Entrepreneurs Can Leverage South Australia's Investment Ecosystem. But in order to understand how to do that, I think I need to explain a little bit about InvestSA. So InvestSA is in the Department of State Development. We were re-established by this current government by the gentleman that you can see on the screen there. So our Premier on your left and Minister Sokach on the right, who made an opening speech yesterday. They re-established us to understand and to develop our areas of competitive advantage here in South Australia and to build those. Our role is to link local businesses and project proponents to local, national and international investors like yourselves. Now, I can stand here and talk to you all day. I love South Australia, I'm very passionate about it. But we have developed a video to show you which encapsulates all of those areas of competitive advantage. Now, I have to promise I actually haven't tested it, so I hope the tech works, otherwise you'll be listening to me. Seems like we have lost the audio. I'm not sure if the tech team can fix the audio, but hopefully this will give you a bit of a snapshot of the areas that we believe we have not just a national competitive advantage, but a global competitive advantage. Thank you, and thank you to the tech team for fixing that issue. Next slide there, thank you. It's easy to see, I guess, from this slide when you look at some of the numbers here that we are recognised as a growth state. We are the best performing economy in Australia at the moment, and we have been recognised as having the highest growth by the Australian Bureau of Statistics. So this is not a government representative telling you how great South Australia is. These are independent organisations that have ranked us as one of the best economies here in Australia at the moment. How did we do this? Well, that's the question. So I'd like to have a look at some figures on the next slide, and you can look at these and try to understand how significant some of these figures are. That first one, 74% renewable energy generation. 50% of that is wind. The rest is solar. But we will be 100% net renewable generation by 2027. Now, when I first started in this role, it was 2028. We've brought that target forward. The only other jurisdiction of our size that is even close to this is Denmark. So globally, I think it's fair to say that South Australia, together with countries like Denmark, is leading the global green transition. Other important figures there, 68% of Australia's copper is here, an incredibly important mineral for electrification. We have 60% of Australia's mineral resources. 80% of the premium wine is made here in South Australia. We will be bringing in close to $60 billion worth of investment in defence alone, up to 2040. We have incredible grains and pulses harvested here, which many of those pulses then go to India. We are leading Australia in agricultural research and also have universities ranked in the top 1%. So as you can see, although we're a small jurisdiction, these figures show you that we are really well placed to continue to grow and lead the economy here in Australia. The renewable energy story is an interesting one. I know this is a difficult slide to read, and I'll share my presentation with the authors so that you can look at this in more detail. But those different coloured areas there, the darker green areas there, are the renewable energy zones that we have identified where our solar and our wind is equally strong. There are not many locations globally where there is coexistent wind and solar, which is close to infrastructure, existing infrastructure, which is also close to a port, which is also close to mineral resources. This is a very rare location globally. We have all of the ingredients that we need to then transform our economy and re-industrialise using our green energy. Interestingly, I said 74% on the previous slide. We're actually already producing on many days more energy than we need. We had 180 days last year. We were already producing over 100% renewable energy, and we were sharing that energy with the rest of Australia. Ideally, what we want to do is to use that extra energy to produce green products here in South Australia, which will in turn help other economies to decarbonise. Our critical minerals are very strong. It's essential that we do look to manufacture those here using that excess green energy that we have. We have a great opportunity not only to mine those using that energy, but also to process and refine them here, adding value to our economy and producing more complex jobs. We also have world-class magnetite, which is an incredibly important ingredient for producing green iron and green steel, which we believe will provide, and again, inputs to the rest of the world to decarbonise. We are also Australia's defence state. You would have seen in the video our shipbuilding and submarine building capability here. That will continue to grow based on the AUKUS partnership that we have with the US and the UK. We already have 7 of the world's 10 primes based here in South Australia. Companies like BAE System, Boeing, Raytheon and Babcock all have thriving businesses here. And since Investec was established, we've also attracted other global primes like Kongsberg from Norway, MBDA, Sierra Nevada Corporation, and Bombardier from Canada. We are also Australia's space state. We have a very long history of aerospace here in South Australia. We have a rocket range in the north of South Australia called Woomera that has been in operation since the 1950s. And building on that history and that capability that we have, now have received federal approvals for launch from South Australia. This is an important location for launch. It's a polar launch, so the launch would be going south over the South Pole and then coming back over the top of the world over some very sensitive locations, which I'm sure you can appreciate. So we have a lot of interest internationally to access the launch capability here in South Australia. We also have a very interesting opportunity to develop multiple industries through the returns from space. Some of you may know there are many valuable payloads which go into space, and those payloads, when they come back to Earth, are often dropped in the ocean and need to be retrieved at very high cost from very difficult to access locations. The interesting part about South Australia is that we can return those payloads on land, not far from where these launches are made. So it's a much cheaper process and a much safer process, and we believe that we have an opportunity to develop downstream pharmaceutical processing of these payloads that are coming back, and we could potentially become the returns capital for the world. What other areas are we strong in here in South Australia? We are the location for the Australian Institute of Machine Learning, an institute which is top 3 in the world for machine learning. So we are quickly becoming the Centre for AI Research in Australia, here in Adelaide. We also have the Australian Cyber Collaboration Centre, another national organisation for cyber research. And we have special niche opportunities in quantum sensing and quantum materials. We have a thriving research and development ecosystem, which is based at Lot 14, and I understand that many of you will be visiting that location tomorrow. And I really do recommend that you do make time to go there and also to some of the other locations like the Tonsley Innovation District. I can stand here all day and tell you what a great location it is, but other organisations like the Commonwealth Bank, Deloitte, PwC have all come to South Australia, had their offices established here for many years, but are now looking at this ecosystem that you can see on this slide and wanting to expand their operations. Those 3 companies that I mentioned have established IT hubs here, 200, 300 staff, bringing their regional hub here to Adelaide to leverage this ecosystem. And we have pleasingly now opportunities to integrate further with India through an MOU that we have recently signed as a state with T-Hub from Mumbai. So we're hoping to welcome more Indian startups into this ecosystem. I won't dwell on this slide too long, but just to let you know that we do also have many opportunities in property investment here in South Australia. We have a nationally recognised online planning system. If you are interested in looking at properties, you can determine very quickly the locations through this online tool. You can see what sort of coding, what sort of, whether it's state-owned or privately owned, the use of that land is also listed. We do have one of the easiest to navigate systems for property investment, and importantly, we don't have any third-party appeals once you have development approvals in place. So it is a very easy system and well recognised amongst international investors, and we are seeing a lot of growth here in South Australia in the property investment area. So just in closing, I would like just to focus on some of the things that we are very good at and why we've been able to grow and be recognised as such an easy place to do business. I think it really does come down to the benefit of being a smaller government. Some of you may be dealing in other states in Australia and other locations globally. Sometimes the government, the bureaucracy can be very big and difficult to navigate. It takes time. Really interesting part about coming to South Australia is I can get decision makers from different departments together very quickly. We can look at a project, answer all of the questions that you need answered in a very short space of time. We can give you access to senior decision makers, and our ministers are very generous with their time, as you saw here yesterday with Minister Beddison and Minister Sokach both here. So I do believe that we have an easy to navigate system. We also, pleasingly, are the lowest taxing jurisdiction in Australia, which will help most businesses when they're looking to establish here. To give you a bit of an idea about the level of support that we have from our senior leaders, I'd just like to show you a couple of slides to finish. Our Premier Malinauskas has visited India, met with senior business leaders. Many of you will recognise Mr. Jindal there on the right, and of course the Tata Group on the left there. we are gaining access for South Australian businesses at the highest level. We also have a very active governor of South Australia who is also extremely supportive and visits markets regularly with our delegations of exporters and investors, and has fantastic access to very senior levels in government, as you can see there. Minister Sokach also talked yesterday about connections with other people which he has met in market. Now, I cannot guarantee you a photo with Sachin Tendulkar, but if you do come to South Australia, I'm sure that we would be very welcome to join some of the missions that the Minister is making overseas. And you may also be able to get a chance to see some celebrities like this. For reference, we also have recently just announced our trade and investment strategy to 2030. I would recommend that many of you access that if you can. We have put a lot of work into market and sector prioritisation, and India is front and centre for that strategy. We have programs developed for exporters here from South Australia to enter new markets like India. And we have investment attraction programs for companies that are looking to join our ecosystem here, so we can provide you with some small incentives. Thank you for your time. My contact details are there. I would just like to reiterate, we have a great ecosystem here. Some recent wins include Zoho Corporation, I think we mentioned previously. A very well-known company in India. They chose South Australia as their hub for Australia. They saw us, they saw the advantages of being here, the ease of doing business. Many companies automatically defer to bigger centres like Sydney or Melbourne, but there are some significant advantages of considering South Australia, and I would recommend that you do. Please see me afterwards if you can make time, and I'm very happy to talk you through some of the things that we can offer you here in South Australia. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Chris, for that presentation. And as we know, Zoho is also the organizing partner for this conference, the World Hindu Economic Forum. May I now request Dr. Christian Berzer, to share his insights on how universities can de-risk entry and fast-track commercialization.
Namaste, namaskar, sat sri akal, wanakam, namani, g'day. Hello, my name's Chris. Language is important. That's all I can say in any of those languages. Language is important, and I think that's going to be the subtle message I get across in this presentation. I'd like to start by thanking Catherine Matthew and Rajendra Pandey for their trust in me to give this presentation, and I hope I'm going to provide a good return of investment. So, which way are we going? Okay, so universities have thousands of very intelligent people working there, and we've heard from both Brian and Chris that there's a lot of opportunity here in South Australia, and there's a lot of innovation that's come out of it. But there's also a big struggle in getting into that university sector and making sure we can get the innovation out. And that comes down to this translation point. So I'm going to quickly talk about what universities really do, because we don't translate well to industry, in my personal opinion. Highlight some pathways into that partnership and also provide some case studies. So the big translation thing is industry like research and development. Universities don't necessarily do research and development. We do research, and it becomes a big problem in terms of understanding KPIs. Research is understanding why something works. Research and development is knowing how it makes it better, faster, cheaper, more commercial. And so when academics and industry talk to each other and they both mention research, they're actually speaking different languages. So we need to work out how to bridge that gap. Commercialisation of a thing is the aim. Commercialisation of a why doesn't really work. You should all be familiar with technical readiness levels, something NASA developed. So TRL1 is where we have a basic idea of something, whereas TRL9 is where we have a commercial product that's good for the market and can be adapted and profitable. Now, an issue is we have academia working from TRL1 to 4. So we look at a concept, we look at a design, we come up with an understanding of why it works. And industry, in terms of investing in an idea or a concept, don't want the risk of that early stage. When I do my research, I don't know what the answer is going to be. It might be a null outcome, which is not a good investment opportunity. So industry are happy with TRL 6 onwards, and therefore we have this gap in the middle where we need to bridge. So that's the translation thing. That's what universities do. That's what industry want or would like universities to go further in. But end of the day, my KPIs are not necessarily commercialisation. My colleagues' KPIs are not necessarily commercialisation. And so there are some issues there. Hopefully, so I'm from the University of Adelaide, which in 6 months' time will be Adelaide University. With the merger of UniSA, will be one of the largest universities in Australia, and hopefully there'll be more opportunities and that mind shift will change. But at this point in time, it's still a process to get there. So if you do want to engage with universities, we have many organisations, groups. You would have heard most likely from Professor Jess Gallagher yesterday, how we're engaging in these fields. We have innovation centres, research centres, commercialisation groups. We push all these, and they're at the high level, so they don't necessarily know what's happening throughout the whole university. And that's because academics work somewhat in isolation. We're our own little kingdoms. It's probably not a glowing reflection on us, but that's how we seem to work. So these high-level groups don't necessarily know everyone in the university, don't know all their capabilities, what they can achieve. They know the big players, the big names. They could be, so these groups could be the right players to speak with. If you know the Jess Gallaghers or you know the Peter Hoys and the Vice-Chancellors, that could be an entry into the system. But if you know Bill Gates, that might be an entry into Microsoft, but it might not be because he doesn't know everything that everyone's doing in that company. You also have well-established research teams. You may hear of some of the stellar professors out there. They have their groups. The issue with them is they're already established. Their KPIs are research funding, publications, doing that sort of work. They're already established. You may have a great idea or you might want to tap into their field, but they're already established. So it might not be worth it for them. You might not be on their KPI radar. The next group then are the early career researchers, or where we're running projects for honours, masters and PhD level. So they're the younger researchers, they're not established quite yet. They are looking for something to jump onto. So they know what they're capable of, they know what their surrounding teams have in their equipment and their facilities, and they could be the people that you want to tap into with potential ideas. They may be looking for opportunities for commercialisation. With the honours and the masters projects, every year University of Adelaide showcase our honours projects in engineering, so we'll have about 200 to 300 projects run here at the Convention Centre in late October, and you can see some excellent ready to commercial products. You can see some not quite excellent projects as well because students are students, but there's a lot of commercial opportunity to see what is possible. And when we merge, there's obviously going to be the opportunity then for 300, 400 different projects in the way we run. So again, that's the background. Let me just give some case studies. So I'm very self-deprecating. I do get in trouble for that. So I'm going to give some case studies of my work, which has not been overly successful, and then use an example of one person who has had a lot of success in coming up with commercially viable products, but for some reason he's not a multi-millionaire. So my work. My research field is in combustion and fluid mechanics and technology for resource-constrained communities. So nothing that's currently going to be hugely commercial, but have a big impact in society. So on the top left is a very crude-looking cook stove. It is designed initially from a project out of the Nepalese Terai region, where we're looking at dung-burning cook stoves. Produce harmful emissions. These sort of things result in 4 million premature deaths every year and used throughout the world by approximately 2 billion people. So it's a big market, has a big impact. We did the capital R research to work out how things work and why they work and why it could be improved. But through an honours project or a series of projects, we looked at commercialisation, and we did produce a product, and we worked with a company called Project Everest, who worked in, ironically not Nepal, but in Fiji and East Timor, and they commercialised this product and started selling it. Then COVID hit and they went into administration, unfortunately. The product on the right is a water treatment system. That's how I first met Catherine Matthews. It just uses sunlight. It was designed initially for, we had the intent of it being an Indian focused product. Just uses sunlight, treats water to meet World Health Organization standards, so sunlight, gravity, no electricity, can produce 10 litres an hour of water, and the product was about a $30 product. We had it, everything was set up, but I'm really bad at commercialisation. I had some very successful people come to me and say, we need you to get to technical readiness level 6 or beyond before we invest, and that wasn't my KPI, so I could not do that. That was a failing on my behalf, but end of the day, it's still a product that could achieve a lot of success throughout the world. We've looked at other things, and this is an example of biodigesters. So the use of turning agricultural waste or organic waste into usable methane for cook stoves or for fertiliser or for agricultural water. So we looked at a system and then we did the capital R research, and it's not necessarily going to be overly interesting for the commercialisation stage, but we can produce more methane from organic waste, say from a large farm. We can use that to invest in energy generation or clean cook stoves for a community. We know how to make it faster, better, quicker, but we looked at the research. So when we saw this, rather than say how do we commercialise it, we looked at scanning electron microscopes to look at the char and the bacteria growth, because the image on the bottom right is my KPI, it's not the commercialisation. Again, this could be part of a billion-dollar industry, but it's just not the KPIs we look at. So they're the bad examples. These are ones all from one person and his team. So Richard Kelso is on the top left-hand corner there. He's holding the Athens Olympic torch. His design was used for the Sydney Olympic torch. His design was used for the Athens Olympic torch and all the subsequent torches in some way, shape or form for all the Olympics. Bottom right-hand image is the cauldron from the Sydney Olympic torch, Sydney Olympic Games. So that was his idea. You can't really commercialise that very well because it's public domain. His field is in fluid mechanics. The top right-hand image is the Wagner ring cycle that they showcased here a number of years ago. They had the entire this entire stage on flame based on his designs and his understanding of the fluid mechanics and the systems. And so very successful. Not necessarily commercial, or not very profitable, but still a commercial benefit. His passion, though, is in cycling. And so he went on to design the world's fastest road cycling helmet, the world's fastest track cycling helmet. His designs went on the bike posts, on the seat post, the cranks, the handles, even the socks that the cyclists wear. His design was used recently to break the 1 minute barrier, or the 1 hour record. His designs have been used in the Australian and the UK Olympic teams. They've been used, these are examples, so the Pinarello Bolio was the bike that just set a record. His helmets have been used with Scott Cadence and Cast. The socks I've mentioned, current Olympic Games, all these sorts of things. Now in the previous session, someone made mention of if we invested in Airbnb early on, it would have been a wonderful thing, but we didn't. If you invested in Richard Kelso as a person 15 years ago or 20 years ago, your organisation or your group, your team, would have some sort of investment in the fastest helmets used in the Tour de France, used in Olympic teams. It'd be on all the bikes, and these bikes cost $30,000 each. I don't know why, but they do. It's just a one-person thing. In the new university, the new Adelaide University, there will be 6,000 staff all who may have a similar story to Richard Kelso. So it's just an example where the people are critical. Richard never had his major empire, even though he could achieve so many things and he was known for all these great things. And you can see the same thing with a lot of other academics. The hard thing is finding them, meeting them, getting to know their capabilities and their interests. I do reflect on the video that Chris showed with a lot of South Australian industry, and I was challenging myself to think of my staff, my colleagues, my friends who work in those industries, and every single one, I know someone who's done amazing work in that research sector, whether it's silent submarines, whether it's better wine, whether it's biotech industries or shipbuilding opportunities. I've got colleagues who are working in all those fields. You just may not know them, and that's the hard thing. Likewise, Brian made mention of Sage Automation, so a lot of my graduates work in these organisations. We produce thousands of amazing graduates who, they might not be the commercial outcome, the research outcome universities provide, but they have the know-how, the skills, the technology, the capabilities that could be used. So the commercialisation might not just be the products and the research we do, but the other product we achieve, which is our graduates. So understanding those things really could be critical in terms of developing that link between industry and universities. So the quick summary is that expectation management and language is a thing. TRLs and KPIs are different, or the KPIs are different for university as they are for industry. The prestigious, very successful academics might not be the right people to speak with. They could be, but they might not be. And there's plenty of projects out there that could be snapped up by venture capitalists, but we're still at the TRL 3s and 4 stages, not at the 5s and 6s. So sometimes a bit of risk investment is needed. But that's all for me, so thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Christian, for those insights. And on your point on expectation management, that's a very interesting one, because I think between industry and academia, that's a constant conflict when we look at the urgency with which industry wants to get to results vis-a-vis the depth which with academia wants to approach the problem. So I may take this opportunity, because it's a rarity to see academia, industry, and government on one panel together. So I'm going to use this opportunity to ask the first question, and possibly after that we'll get into the question segment. We have 15 minutes to go for the Q&A. But quickly, if I may, you all have viewed this bilateral relationship from different vantage points. Brian, as former special envoy with India for South Australia, what really you feel has significantly changed in the last 2 or 3 years in this bilateral relationship that really, marks a major shift between Australia and Bharat's relationship?
The major change that's occurred is the change at the government level, the federal government level. It is only when the federal government of Australia got interested in India that the momentum between Australia and India in the bilateral trade and business sector is beginning to be realized. For years, the uranium issue prevented our countries from doing business together because of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, which India had not signed and could not be expected to sign, given who's on India's borders. But it was once that was overcome, slowly there was a realization between Australia and India, but mostly, I must say, from the Australians' point of view, began to get a bit more interest in India in the business and commercial areas, so that now we have, for the first time, basically a free trade agreement. It's not exactly a free trade agreement, but it's certainly a commercial agreement between the two countries, which is an incredible advantage, an incredible move towards better bilateral relations. But that really has only happened in the last 5 years, if that. But it's a very noticeable change. The other thing, of course, that is now impacting the relationship is what's going on in the other end of the world, in America. and what's happening there, which is drawing, I would think, is going to be drawing our two countries closer together for a whole lot of reasons, which can only be to the benefit of both Australia and India. But there certainly has been a change in momentum, and I personally am very pleased to see that is moving forward quickly.
Thanks, Brian. And we are in the middle of ongoing CECA negotiations. And of course, the impact of the Australia-India Economic Cooperation Trade Agreement, the interim trade agreement, has seen a remarkable growth in our trade figures from somewhere around $26 billion 3 years ago to the way it has now shifted to over $45 billion. And we are aiming for $100 billion in the next few years. Chris, you mentioned about the political involvement of South Australian government and the visits and the companies who have actually stationed themselves. From that vantage point, what, in your opinion, has really changed significantly, and where do you see this going from here?
Thank you. And I would just like to echo Brian's comments. Absolutely, ECTA has provided a great springboard and an incentive for companies and governments to refocus their energy onto key markets. I mentioned our trade and investment strategy to 2030 on the back of ECTA and the fact that our senior leadership has recognised those opportunities. That is very much front and centre in our strategy. Three things: food security, energy security, and economic security. As a result of that, I think we have what markets need. We have a lot of space, a lot of opportunity to access green energy inputs to help India decarbonise. So I think there's a lot of reciprocal benefits. We can produce what India needs. We can also provide inputs into agribusiness. We can help facilitate investment into downstream agribusiness ventures to then provide more product back into India. Mm-hmm. So there's, I think, a growing need to partner with jurisdictions of like mind and of similar needs. And I think we really match up beautifully with India at the moment. And I think across multiple sectors, not just agribusiness and energy, but there is a renewed interest to investigate those opportunities where we have complementary products and that can meet the needs of the market.
Absolutely, and you mentioned about your South Australia economic strategy roadmap to 2030, which categorically mentions India as a key economic driver in this growth story. Christian, very insightful presentation on the challenges that academia faces when it comes to engaging with industry and really managing that balance between the industry engagement. What would you advise for what will be your advice for an Indian company that's looking into venturing Australian market? How would you suggest them to approach, universities when it comes to building those initial R&D partnerships?
It depends on scale. So if a big company can go through the top and speak with the vice chancellors, speak with the deputy vice chancellors of engagement, that sort of thing, or they can try to go at the grassroots, and a quick Google search can find out the people who do certain things, and so. Cold calling isn't a bad idea. It's that middle group where you've got a very established professor who does everything. It's just going to be dependent on if they want to go into an R&D side of things, or they have staff that they could have put towards that R&D side of things, or they're focused on just research. But end of the day, money talks. So academics will follow a dollar, to be honest.
All right, so you're saying that you need to have deep pockets to really bring in universities' involvement?
I don't think deep pockets is like academic deep pockets and industry deep pockets are two different things. Yeah. I know academics who would happily get a grant for tens, $20,000 to do some work, at least at the initial stage.
Sure. Thank you, Christian. I invite questions from the floor. If there are any questions.
Natasha, I might just also add, while the mic's going to the first person, I failed to mention in my presentation, but on the back of ECTA and on the back of this senior leadership, we have actually increased our presence in market as a state. Most states, I think internationally, are perhaps pulling back on their representation overseas, but South Australia is increasing ours. So we now have opened a new office, an extra office in India. We have a representative in Mumbai and also in Chennai. So I just want to make sure the audience is aware of that. We're actually increasing our representation.
Thanks, Christian. Yes, please.
I think we might need a new microphone.
While we're waiting, can I just add something? We mustn't forget the relationship between our institutions, between India and Australia, which has increased dramatically in the last few years. For example, India now, Australian universities can set up campuses in India. The law, in my particular profession, the law, there is now an agreement whereby Australian lawyers can now establish practices in India. And by that, so there's going to be this reciprocity of relationships, one with the other. These are very important institutional arrangements.
That's an excellent point, Brian. In terms of the involvement that we have seen of Australian universities in the India market, we have University of Wollongong. Patricia Davidson was here yesterday as the former Vice Chancellor of UOW. Under her leadership, we have seen UOW opening its campus in the Gift City. Also, Deakin is in the Gift City. And we have Western Sydney University, and UWA has also made its announcement to now enter the India market. Yes, please, question.
Yeah. I would like to ask this question to Chris. While actually describing, Chris has told that actually there is an opportunity in real estate. From the prospect of demand and supply chain, with respect to real estate and the real estate development, both residential as well as commercial, will you be able to tell us what kind of a demand that is prevalent in South Australia?
So specifically for real estate? Yes, so look, on the back of the university merger, we will soon have the largest university in Australia. That will be close, I know not perhaps large in Indian standards, but 70 to 75,000 students, depending on who you speak to. This is an incredibly important stimulus to our sector here. We are seeing a lot of student accommodation developments now happening. We're also seeing new developments in build to rent. That's an important sector because of the defence sectors and the space sector that I showed you. We will require accommodation for 8,000 to 10,000 executives that are coming into South Australia over the next 10 to 15 years. So we will need higher end accommodation. So there's a whole range of different asset classes that will come online here in South Australia, as well as normal real housing developments for our increasing population. So the government has released a significant amount of land for housing developments here across South Australia. So we will see residential demand, but also student accommodation, and we expect build to rent to also be significant. And I think you would have seen too, during your visit here, the number of cranes that are prevalent in the skyline. I think that's a great indicator of economic growth in a city, and we have lots of cranes at the moment, which is exciting.
Thanks, Chris. Next question, please.
Hello. I got a question for the Chris regarding the renewable energy. You talk a little bit more that we're going to get 100% in 2027. So will that be more co-benefit for the investor or the end user? Or the second question is, will there be a more focus on return on investment or return on values?
I know there's a session on green energy and opportunities later today, and I know Sandeep, where I think Sandeep was in the audience just before, I think he will talk in more detail about that specifically, so I don't want to steal his thunder. But as far as renewable energy is concerned, I do believe there's still a lot of growth and opportunities for over and above when we get to 100%. We will get on to 150, 200% very quickly because of the scale of the projects which are in the development pipeline. To give you an idea, in InvestSA we have a renewables, fuels and clean tech team. They are currently managing 50 projects, 50, on top of that 74% mark that I showed you. So we are on a very steep pathway to producing more energy than we need. We are technology agnostic, so we are open to any sort of technologies to use that energy. There are still many hydrogen projects which are in the pipeline. We have a green cement project in Port Augusta, which is groundbreaking and receiving international investment from Japan, from Korea. We have opportunities to do green iron, HBI, DRI here in South Australia. And I know that will be discussed in the next session later this afternoon as well. But there's also opportunities for things like data centres to come in and use the extra energy. So I'm getting an inquiry every week about data centres establishing here in South Australia to take those green offtake agreements. So I believe there'll be opportunities in a whole range of different areas to leverage this leadership in the green transition that we have now.
Thanks. Next question, please.
Namaste, everyone. I'm Devavrat. I'm a law student from Sydney and the president of Hindu Youth Australia. My question is to Brian and Christian. Brian, you talked about the success story of Sage Automation and how the involvement of Rakesh, the MBA student, led to business development opportunities for Sage Automation in India. Could you outline initiatives that unis have and opportunities for businesses to connect with local students, local international students on campuses to attract talent and also build business capabilities in both research development and commercialization? Thank you.
I firmly believe that the diaspora that we have in South Australia is not being tapped enough by businesses to progress the relationship with the country. The students who come to South Australia have an enormous opportunity to benefit from the experience, the learning and education that they get, but the South Australians should take advantage of that opportunity as well, just like Andrew Downes did with Rajesh when he picked him out of the university. I think, and I'm just throwing this out, but I think businesses in South Australia should actively engage with the university sector, actively engage with the students who are doing MBAs and higher education to the extent of doing it on a regular basis. For example, because the students in South Australia don't have access, they're in the university, they don't necessarily get access to or have any knowledge of the businesses that are taking place within the state in which they are at university. And it's incumbent on the businesses of our state to actively engage with them, to make them aware and give them those opportunities to participate in it. And I think that is, with respect, lacking at the moment. To give you an example, when I was active in this area, I encouraged, for example, the banks, and the ANZ Bank in particular, took up the opportunity to have sessions with students from University of South Australia who are doing MBAs in the financial sector, to meet with them and so that they could see what was going on in business. And they did that on a regular basis.
If I may follow, so there is a big issue, and we see a lot of it in the engineering side of things. Our students need to get work experience, and international students find it difficult to land an internship or work experience in South Australia or in Australia just due to defence clearances, or the industry find it a risk to invest in an international student who may go back and not actually stay in South Australia. So what we're doing as part of the new university is we've established a social good consulting company for undergraduate and postgraduate students to working on projects, and then we get industry to provide pro bono mentorship, and so that facilitates that engagement, so industry can start seeing who the good students are, what capabilities they've got, start building those relationships and working out how to prosper through this whole process.
Just conscious of time, so I'll have to stop taking the questions. Please, take forward this conversation offline in the interest of time. But thank you very much for these very rich insights, everyone. Each of you, you've talked about the Australia-India Film Production Treaty, a massive win between both countries and what we have achieved there. So there are a lot of takeaways, on Chris's point on why South Australia and the opportunities for commercialization, between both countries. But I'm going to leave this panel with a very quite provocation, because we are talking about Bharat, we are talking about the opportunities that exist between both countries, and we are also speaking of the Hindu community as a global, resilient, and successful. All that is very true, but the deeper question is, what are we doing with that success? We are 1.4 billion strong. What percentage of global narratives do we own? And are we simply participating in systems built elsewhere? Or are we designing the ones that reflect our own values, our own priorities? So I leave you with this. We have the numbers, we have the capital, we have the credibility. What I request for is coordinated ambition and alignment. And that's where we are here to achieve, to have greater alignment among all of us and really create these new narratives that's required. Start with mentoring one young entrepreneur from Bharat, buy one Bharatiya SME you're not currently buying from, host a small business roundtable, invest in one high-impact Bharatiya business, and mainstream Bharat story everywhere that you go to, every discussion that you are part of. Talk about Bharat, talk about opportunities. That's the only way all of us are going to build that business literacy. And I'm very fond of Hindi poetry, so I'm going to close, if I may. इस पथ का उद्देश्य नहीं है शांत भवन में टिके रहना, किंतु पहुंचना उस सीमा तक जिसके आगे राह नहीं है. बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद. Thank you very much.
We sincerely thank all our distinguished speakers for their valuable insights, practical experiences, and thought-provoking perspectives. Thank you, panel. Thank you. That concludes our engaging session on Australia Means Business. We extend our heartfelt thanks to our organizing partners, Government of South Australia and Zoho, Platinum sponsors Shubham Tanks and Linus Private Limited, Gold sponsor Saraf Global. I would now like to invite Manik Luthra from Royal India Grocery to the stage to receive a token of appreciation from Swamiji for their support to WHEF 2025. Manik Luthra ji and Swamiji, please come on the stage. And next session after the lunch is Wealth Creation in the Digital Age, Opportunities through Innovation and Technology. We kindly ask all the delegates, please be returned by 1:30 p.m. so we can begin the next session. The lunch will start from 12:15 to 1:30, so kindly be back, and then networking will happen during that time. Kindly be returned in the conference hall by 1:30, please.